Yesterday night, I was watching a Russian comedy show when a Dutch friend of mine came over, and he just had no clue what was happening on screen. So I got curious how good the auto-translated subtitles would be. Now, a couple of years ago, if you try to use auto-generated Russian subtitles and then auto-translate them to English, it would have been a complete mess. But we decided to give it a try. And guess what? It was actually pretty good. I'd say about 90 to 95% of the content was translated accurately. And this is fantastic for anyone learning Russian. Why? Потому что таким образом вы можете смотреть много видео, которые раньше были без субтитров. So I've always recommended people to watch Russian series, movies, and YouTube videos to improve their Russian. But there was a problem. Only a handful of big YouTube channels provide their own English translation. And this meant that as a beginner, you were pretty much limited to channels like Vdut, Anton Ptushkin, and Orel y Reshka. But now, thanks to improvements in AI, voice recognition, and translation technology, you can watch almost any Russian content on YouTube and use the auto-translate feature to generate English subtitles. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to help you understand what's going on. For example, yesterday the show I was watching was called Самый умный комик by a stand-up club номер один. And it's a great show with good and upcoming stand-up comedians. And I'll be honest, if you're watching stand-up, some of the jokes might go over your head, and that's normal. Even I have that sometimes. But Russian comedy is great, and the subtle jokes can be very thin. I like them. But what should you watch if you're just starting out? I recommend simpler series like Кухня, Интерны, or even Как я стал русским. Shows have more visual context, which makes it easier to understand what's happening, even if you don't understand every word. So how do you do this? Well, you first look up the show or video you want to watch. Then you just click the settings button, go to captions, choose auto translate, and choose English. Like it even worked for some of my own videos where I speak Russian, so that's when I realized that, it's actually doing quite well.
Высказать. Только потом, когда вы на более продвинутом уровне, можете более сосредоточиться именно на том, как правильно говорить.
Now you might be wondering, why watch Russian shows if I'm going to use English subtitles? And the main reason is to give your brain and ears the opportunity to get used to the Russian language. You're training your ears to recognize the sounds and rhythms of Russian speech. Plus, you're picking up words and phrases in context, which is super valuable for language learning. Because if you were to try to watch without subtitles right away from the start, it will be frustrating. You might manage to stick with it for 10 minutes before giving up because it's just too hard. But when you add English subtitles, you can actually enjoy the content while still listening to correctly spoken Russian. And the fact that the auto-translated subtitles aren't always like 100% accurate is actually a good thing, because you'll find yourself paying more attention to the Russian audio to see if you can catch what they're really saying. And the increased focus you need for that will improve learning. Now, here are 5 steps to make the most out of this approach. Start with shows that have a lot of visual context, because this will help you connect what you're hearing with what you're seeing. So, series over stand-up comedy. Next, don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. The goal is exposure and gradual improvement. Don't be perfectionistic. And try to watch for about 20 minutes a day. Consistency is key here. It's better to watch for 20 minutes a day versus like 5 hours on a Sunday night. And don't be afraid to rewatch episodes each time you'll pick up something new. Also, make sure to mix up different types of content every month or so. Series, documentaries, interviews, stand-up, because each will expose you to different vocabulary and speech patterns. But don't mix it up too often, as your brain needs some time to get used to the way like some people speak in whatever you're watching. So the goal isn't to understand every single thing from the start. It's about consistent exposure and gradual improvement. And over time, you'll start to recognize more and more words and phrases, and you'll begin to pick up on grammar structures without even realizing it. And here's something really cool. As your Russian improves, because I hope you're listening to audio courses and learning vocabulary outside of just watching series, you'll start to notice occasional differences between what the auto-translated subtitles say and what the speakers are actually saying. And this is so incredibly rewarding. Now, you might be thinking, where can I find good Russian shows to watch? And if you signed up for my Conversations Unlocked course, you'll get access to a free sheet with 100 Russian series recommendation. This list has lots of great shows with subtitles that will help you improve your Russian skills. But even if you haven't signed up for the course, don't let that stop you. There's so much content out there on YouTube and other streaming platforms that you can just start with whatever interests you, whether that's cooking shows, travel vlogs, or science documentaries. The most important thing is to find content you enjoy, because that will keep you coming back for more. It's a journey, not a destination. So every single minute you spend listening to Russian is a step forward, even if it doesn't feel like that in the moment. And if you're curious how I became fluent in Russian, watch this video next.